Hey everyone, it's that time again. Today I want to go over what I think are the best decks that you should be playing with or building your deck to beat right now in Sorcery Contested Realm with AL or Arthurian Legends in the meta. Let's go ahead and start with a deck that I call Christmas. Now this deck has gone through several iterations. Basically, it's just fire aggro with a splash of air, a heavy splash of air for mobility, direct damage, and spells that you could treat as removal, like Grapple Shot, Lightning Bolt, Chaos Twister, even Whirling Blades can be used for removal. Now, like I said, this deck is primarily fire aggro. This deck has gone through several iterations. In a previous video, I talked about the Witch Fire Air aggro deck. That's a pretty good deck. I think it's pretty decent against Archimago. I don't think it really stands up well to any other Sorcerer aggro deck, and not even like Earth Air Sorcerer mid-range decks. So I had to adapt. During the most recent league, I played a more low to the ground aggro fire air deck. I went 8-0 in the first part of the league. I ended up losing in the quarterfinals to Kyle playing Earth Air Midrange with Druid, and that's one of the other decks that we want to go over here. But the whole reason why I changed the deck was because I really didn't feel comfortable playing against Earth Air Midrange with so many low-powered minions. Now, that heavy aggro version was really good against Archimago. So we did have to get a little weaker versus Archimago with this version. And that was to my detriment in the most recent Tournament of Champions, but I can't talk too much about that just yet. We will talk more about that in a future video. But for this video, I want to go over all the decks that I think are doing really well, and I think are very consistent. And overall, I think that the meta is very balanced. So let's talk about Christmas here. So you can see right off the bat, we have only a couple of auras here. Jihad, it doesn't even need an explanation of why it's in the deck. It obviously pumps up all of our fire minions, and allows us to play our fire minions right in our opponent's face. Great Famine. Now, Great Famine is probably flies under the radar for a lot of people. It is a really good card. Something that people forget is it can take out root spiders that are burrowed underground, keeping your minions from dealing damage, from attacking your opponent's sites. So Great Famine is a really great card. I like it even more in the version of this deck that had lower powered minions, because you could put a Great Famine down and almost always like your opponent's minions were going to be equal or more powerful than your minions. So it was a little bit more, reliably effective in that deck that played things like Highland Falconer and Palaberry Bats. But it's still very good, especially in our weak matchup, which is Earth Air Midrange. It can also take out an animated Leviathan Island. It can take out a submerged shark or Anui Undine. Great Famine is just a really great card. A little bit underrated, I think, right now. So don't forget about adding this to your fire decks from now on if you haven't already started. We have Amethyst Core in here, Mix Ignis. Mix Ignis is really cool in Sorcerer decks. Same with Amethyst Core and Ruby Core. These are mana ramp cards. They're really good because Sorcerer can draw extra cards per turn. So if you get this kind of ramp out early, and it allows you to draw more cards every turn, it allows you to start drawing 2 spells per turn and possibly playing 2 spells per turn. That's extremely effective with Sorcerer. It speeds up the clock for your opponent to come up with proper responses to your aggression. So yes, Mix Ignis. Sometimes you'll have 2 5-drops in your hand. You can only play 1, but you have a mix, and the mix will allow you to play the other. That's why that's in here. It's to keep the tempo up and to keep your plays more consistent and to give you more opportunity, more options. So we have Ring of Morgan in here, of course. That goes without saying. So powerful. We also have the Highland Princess that can fetch the Ring of Morgan, allows you to search the spellbook for an artifact with converted mana cost 1 or less. Now we only have 2 Torchmar trinkets in here right now. We took one of them out from the original version of this deck just because we're not playing with as much. This basically isn't Fire Air aggro as much anymore as it is Fire Air Midrange. And that was, like I said, specifically to combat Earth Air Midrange. Now, Torchmar's Trinket, it's another card that's good against Archimago because when you play a minion with charge, if you have a couple of Torchmar Trinkets in hand, you can throw it on. Every single time you play a minion with charge, you attack in. Now it's going to be dealing 2 extra damage if you have 2 of these in your hand to attack onto it. So even if your Archimago opponent is immediately removing every single spell, every minion that you put on the board and trying to heal, this is going to just make it that much harder for them to stay ahead on life. So Trinket's really good. I would love to play 3 here, even though we're not playing as many cheap creatures or minions in the deck, but I settled for 2. Let me say this is my deck that I've played in the Tournament of Champions, card for card. Okay, I haven't made any updates to it. There is another version of this deck that I've made a few little tweaks to. I wanted to show you what I played in the Tournament of Champions, what I took into the highest level of competition, so that you can get a feel for what you might play against if you enter a tournament of your own. So 2 trinkets in here, could be 3, could go back and forth. That's up to you. We went over the Highland Princess. A couple of Violence are here. These are they're really good for tacking on a little bit of extra damage. Being 2 mana makes them very easy to slot into a turn. You know, you have 6 mana, you drop a 4-drop, then you throw down a Violent as well. Maybe you want to use the Violent to clear out a Grandmaster Wizard or Apprentice Wizard that's trying to block your next attack. I like the Violents. They do a lot. They can also do direct damage to your opponent if your opponent is up against one of your sites or a site that you can cast to with Jihad. So Violent, just another way to deal some extra damage, clear the way, or finish out a game. Warhorse, we're still at 3 Warhorses here. They're really good. Having that mobility, being able to move your avatar forward, so that maybe you get the Ring of Morgan. You want to move your avatar forward so that you can really use that Ring of Morgan to deal damage to nearby minions. Warhorse lets you do that. Warhorse can reposition, say, a Monstrous Lion. Monstrous Lion can't attack sites. He can only attack the opponent's units. So you want to reposition the Monstrous Lion. The Warhorse will do that and allow you to get in damage that turn with the Lion. The Warhorse also is a good way to counteract the Troll Bridge, because the Troll Bridge specifically says that if an enemy minion enters this site, not Bridge Troll, if an enemy minion enters this site alone, then strike it unless the opponent discards a card. So if you have the Warhorse, you can carry one of your minions in here or your avatar, and the bridge doesn't trigger. So you can avoid the bridges, any troll bridges your opponent might play against you. So the Warhorse, it just has a lot of different uses. So I like it. Morgana Le Fay, this goes without saying, gives you 3 extra spells in the turn. Purple Knight, this was a new addition. This is specifically to counter midrange. Coming into play with the Lance, so it has first strike essentially, and it has +1 attack when it strikes. I think this is very important, especially if you happen to get a trinket with it or pick up another Lance. Now it can deal 5 damage first strike against, say, a Pudge Butcher or a Phalanx. Purple Knight is just, it only takes 1 fire and 1 air. So it comes down pretty easily on turn 3, sometimes even on turn 2, if you have a Dark Tower or a core, because you don't need 2 air, you don't need 2 fire. So it's a nice addition to the deck. I found a lot of uses for it. Even if it's combining with Grapple Shot is actually pretty good too. You get to, if you have 6 mana, you get to throw down a Purple Knight, Grapple Shot for 4 to take out a minion or deal 4 damage to your opponent. I like that. Red Cat Powers are still here. They have charge. Goes without saying. Monstrous Lion, charge, Petrosian Cavalry, a couple. I can only fit a couple in here because we wanted to play with Sandworm. Now, Earth Air Midrange or Earth Air Archimago is pretty popular right now. Being able to have a minion that doesn't die to every burrow spell, every earthquake, every berry. Having a minion that can... we don't have Palabrate Bats in here anymore. We swapped them out for Sandworms, basically. So having a minion that can take out opposing root spiders. Another good use for Sandworm, especially against Archimago. If you're playing Sandworm underground, Archimago can't hit it with Poison Nova. Like, Archimago almost has nothing that deals with the Sandworm underground. It usually doesn't play Death Speaker. Or, I'm sorry, not Death Speaker, Death Dealer. It usually doesn't play with River Flame plus Infiltrate, or if it does, it's not always going to have that, you know, ready to get the Sandworm before the Sandworm pops up to attack. So being able to have a Sandworm underground that can kill root spiders, can also crawl under and then pop up for an attack and then grapple or whatever you want to do with it. Maybe you combine trinkets with it. It's very powerful. I like the Sandworm a lot. Like I said, primarily because it doesn't die to Berry or Earthquake. So I love it. The Saracen Raiders, they're so good. This is the best charge minion in the set right now. Being able to cast him anywhere that doesn't have an enemy is extremely powerful, especially against Archimago. Any deck that's trying to like create a defensive line with root spiders, free cities, etc. This guy's going to get in. I've won several games off of this guy alone. Being able to get in on the back line, deliver its presence, and deal that damage without being able to really be defended against very easily at all. So the opponent's always surprised by it, almost always surprised by it, and it's an automatic mainstay in every red aggro deck. Surveillance is in here now. We did add a couple of grapple shots for the Tournament of Champions. We added Whirling Blades and Shatter Strike. Surveillance is just really, when it's good, it's amazing. It's really good. It's another way to take out the Ring of Morrigan. So Surveillance is, I'm very happy with Surveillance in this deck. I've gotten a lot of good uses out of it. So just as a reminder, when Surveillance strikes an avatar, destroy that avatar's site, then burrow any other minions and artifacts there. And it also comes into play with a lance. So for 4 mana, you get a 3/4 with a lance, so it can first strike for 4. That's already an amazing rate, and it comes with the bonus of being able to destroy sites and artifacts. So a really good minion. Courtesan Thais. Courtesan Thais is an all-star in this deck. This wins so many games. When you have Courtesan in your hand, you feel so safe. I feel so safe when I have Courtesan in my hand. I feel like I can make some mistakes, I can get some bad draws, I can come back with Courtesan. I just wait for my opponent to look like he's got some deadly spells in hand that he's been holding the whole game. He's got a lot of resources. I take control of his hand. I cast his Crater Eyes or his Major Explosion on his own head and win the game. Courtesan wins a lot of games. Another good way to use Courtesan, you save it, you take your opponents to Death's Door, and you immediately just play Courtesan to take control of their avatar and use their avatar to attack one of your minions. So yeah, goes without saying, Courtesan Thais, really good. We have a couple of Panorama Manticores added here. This is just a big 5-power body with lethal. It is another way to deal with mid-range. This was added in here because we do have grapple shots, we do have Whirling Blades. This will do the trick. This is going to be tough for any Earth Air mid-range deck to deal with, unless they happen to have a Chaos Twister in hand or their own grapple shot. So Panorama Manticore, it's been doing pretty well for me. I love it. It can block a Phoenix if somebody happens to have a Phoenix without dying. So that's pretty cool. Now it can't kill a Phoenix right now because Phoenix can any damage that the Manticore would deal to a Phoenix is prevented because of the Phoenix's ability and the current ruling on the Phoenix. but it can still block, so that's nice. Sir Pellinor is a new addition. So he's in here because he is another charge minion. If we're already ramping up with some more mana because this is more mid-range, I think he's really good. He does die pretty easily. He's only at 3 toughness. He dies to lightning bolt and magic missiles. But against mid-range, if you can come in, it has charge, it gets a lance, first strike for 6, it can take out an Infernal Legion and draw a card. When he kills a strongest enemy minion, draw a card. I think he's really good. His threshold is a little bit wonky. I wouldn't say that he's an absolute, keeper in the deck. I've been trying him out and he's been pretty fun and pretty good. He's had some good results so far, so we'll keep him in for now. A couple of blinks from ability. A disenchant in here. You'd be surprised how often this disenchant comes in handy. There are a lot of games even that I don't draw disenchant that I wish I had, just to take out the Ring of Morrigan or a core or some aura. So disenchant, absolutely got to keep it in here. A couple of lightning bolts to help finish out the game or take out some small minions, or combine with Vile Imp. We got the grapple shots in here. We got a Chaos Twister, a couple of infiltrates. Infiltrate's a little bit scary because you do, when you're playing against air, sometimes they'll get the Watchtower out, or they'll have Root Spider underground to take stealth away from the minion that you've infiltrated. It's a little scary, but it's necessary. It's so good. I chose 2 infiltrates and 1 twister instead of 2 twisters and 1 infiltrate because twister just isn't always reliable. Infiltrate is more reliable than twister, even with the risk involved with Root Spider and Watchtower. Chaos Twister can just completely lose you the game. You cast it and then a card flies off. Like if you're playing in person, you can blow it too hard and it goes off the mat. Or when you're playing on TTS, it is often that sometimes it just misses and flies off out of the realm. So it's risky, but we have to have these answers to any minion, because otherwise Earth Air will just overrun us. So that's why they're in here. Shatter Strike, just another way to take out a Ring of Morrigan or to take out a big 4 or 5 power minion with one of your 4 or 5 power minions. I like this card. I hate that it's 4 mana and that it's also exceptional. I mean, it doesn't matter in this case because we're not running Earth, but at 4 mana, it gets a little awkward. This one's also like, I'm not like completely sold on this one being in the deck. Sometimes it has come through for me. Sometimes it's just so expensive that it's a bit too clunky. But I think right now it just might be necessary with the Ring of Morrigan being so prevalent in the meta. Peasant Revolt. This is another one that's really good against Archimago. It can be good against Earth Air depending on what sites they have out. It can also take out a Ring of Morrigan, artifacts. So Peasant Revolt, we've talked about this before. It's a really, really good card that can just completely flip the tables in a game and create a win. Whirling Blades, another one that can just totally turn the tables and create a win out of nowhere, especially if you cast it on a 5 power minion or 4 power minion. It can deal a lot of damage in one turn and take out opposing blockers or threats. We do have a single major explosion in here. This card it's one that can be very, very good under a lot of different circumstances, especially if you're behind. I love this card because if you're behind or if you're ahead, it's going to do work. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of like a safety net too. Like if you have a lot of resources, you have a major explosion waiting in hand, you know that your opponent is, if they're going to be pumping out a bunch of minions or try to turn the tables on you tempo wise, major explosion can just flip that around and again create a win, turn a bad situation into a good situation. That's all the spells. Quickly running through the sites here, we have the deserts are in here because deserts are always going to be good. They can take out the Tawny from the Druid. Druid's really good right now. We have to be able to play deserts, take out Tawny. We have to be able to take out little chump blockers like Land Surveyor or Apprentice Wizard. We have the towers, Fields of Camlin to come back if our opponent's trying to overrun us. If we're playing in the mirror match, this is a good card to draw. Forge, a single Forge is in here. This was kind of experimental to see if the Lance would come, would be very useful against the mid-range matchups. Being able to pump our minion up one more attack and get in that first strike. It's good, but I almost think that maybe this should probably just be another desert. Tawny is so powerful, especially when your opponent's putting Torsion trinkets on Tawny. It's nice to just be able to get a free kill with the desert. Funeral Powers for Archimago, Towers, Imperial Road, Pathfinder, Air Fire can be dangerous. If you have an Imperial Road against Pathfinder in your opening hand, it really sets the tempo early. It can get you ahead early and create a win scenario for you. But I don't know, against other matchups, it's not as good. It can be. It just depends on when you play. It's very circumstantial. So right now, it's been hit or miss. The reason why it's hit or miss is it doesn't provide any threshold, so it's a little bit risky. But man, when it's good, it's so good. So it's in here now. It's not as good as Sinkhole. We have 2 Sinkholes in here. Sinkhole is an absolute must. When your opponent plays Pebbled Paths, you're kind of up the creek without a paddle with your charge minions. It makes your charge minions not great. It actually just straight up kills. Like if Pebbled Paths are out and you can't attack, you can't even play powers because they just die because they have to attack or they die. So Sinkhole is a new addition, absolutely necessary to be able to take out Gnome Hollows or Pebbled Paths. So yes, if you're going to take out Imperial Road or one of these colorless sites, you need to take out Imperial Road over Sinkhole. We got some more towers here, Mirror Realm, Deserts, River Flame, very important, especially with Infiltrate, because you can cast Infiltrate with River Flame and take control of a Root Spider or any other underground minion. A few ruins for Threshold. Here's a Smokestack. Smokestack, same thing. It can deal with Pebbled Paths and Gnome Hollows. So Smokestacks and Sinkhole, these are really good in the deck. We have a couple of Watchtowers here in case our opponent tries to infiltrate our units, and a single Treetop Hideout. Now this Treetop Hideout can be the 3rd Watchtower. I wanted to test the Treetop Hideout to see if we can just sneak in extra attacks. Give our minions stealth so we can get free attacks, because we're all about getting in that damage as quickly as possible. So I think it depends on your meta, whatever event you're playing in, but I think Treetop Hideout is definitely worth taking a look at. So that's Christmas. That's Fire Air Midrange now. It was Fire Aggro. Now it's kind of like it's aggro mid-range. We have some pretty big spells in here, some control elements. So let's move on. I think that this is a very valuable deck to play, or any version of this deck. If you want to go lower to the ground, if you want to change out the avatar even to try out Druid, I think that that's fine. Fire Air is excellent because of the charge minions, and because you also get to back it up with things like Grapple Shot, Lightning Bolt, Blink, and very important, Highland Princess to get, Ring of Morgan. So yes, any variation of Fire Aggro, you're going to be, even honestly, Flamecaller, maybe? Flamecaller, decent with Fire Aggro. Moving on to Archimago. So we have a couple of Archimago decks here that we're looking at. This one I call Mago Fuego. It's just Fire Earth. It is primarily Earth. I like the name Mago Fuego. It does use some big fire spells. Honestly, it just has Measure Explosion in here now. When I originally built this deck, I did have like Cone of Flame in here, things like that. But they just weren't as effective as the Earth spells. We have a Stone Rain in here. We have guards. Stone Rain is really cool, like especially when you're playing with Kettletop Leprechauns, because Kettletop Leprechauns will draw you sights when they die. You're also playing with Tithe, which you can recast from the cemetery to draw more sites. So Stone Rain, you can go 1, you can go 2. 3 I think is too much in this deck. I cut it down to 1 because of some experiences that I had while testing. I have a Border Militia in here now. We have Gigantism. Gigantism is just a fun way to sneak in damage. This is a fun deck. I don't want to spend too much time on this deck. I've tested it some. If you want to try it out, try it out. It was fun for me. One interesting thing about this deck is we do have the Roots of Yggdrasil, along with a couple of Sinkholes. We have the Bedrocks to back them up. This goes off often. You know, if you can stall the game out by gaining life, playing Leprechauns, blocking, removing things, and then boom, blow up the realm with Roots of Yggdrasil while your cemetery is full, it's pretty powerful. I've found it to be very powerful. So I know maybe for some places where you play, it's bad taste, bad form to be playing the Roots of Yggdrasil. It's a good card. And not everyone is prepared for it right now in the current meta. So I would give this a shot. If you're interested in something different, this is definitely a fun deck to play. We even have a King of the Realm in here because we're playing with guards. King of the Realm is also cool because it can take over your opponent's minions. So that's another cool reason to play it. So that's Mago Fuego. We still have the most hated deck here. This is Earth Air Archimago. So the point here is Archimago. So Archimago, you can take Archimago in a couple different directions. I do think that Archimago is best in Earth Air with Fire as a splash element, depending on your meta. Fire is good because you get to play with Poison Novas. We have Poison Novas here. So some form of mix with Fire and Earth Air is usually pretty good, but just Earth Air is also fine. But yeah, Earth Air, Splash Fire for Poison Novas, and that's the main thing, honestly. Minor Explosion is really cool, but this is double Fire if you're splashing Fire. Mad Dash is okay, but if you're in Air, you get to play with Blinks. If you're splashing Fire, you can't really play with Morgana, and I probably wouldn't play with Death Dealer that much either. But yeah, with Earth Air, I think Earth Air is just really powerful right now. Earth Air Archimago, Earth Air Druid. That's going to be our next deck here. Like I said, I don't really want to go over Archimago too much here because Archimago is it's like an easy deck. Like there are a lot of decisions when you're playing the deck, but I guess there are a lot of different. Like I remember when I was playing it, there's a lot of thinking to do, okay, but it's kind of like an easy deck to pilot when you're in control. When you're not in control, yes, like you're on the back foot, then it's like, oh, what do I do? Do I play Common Sense and search for another Common Sense to try to fill up my cemetery here? Do I play it and just get removal? Do I want to move out of the way here or stay in line for my like Arcane Barrage? There are a lot of decisions that you have to make and be careful with when you're on the back foot. But if you can stay in control of the game from early on, it kind of just like runs itself, you know. It's kind of like you get on the train and then you just go down the tracks. That's what my experience has been. Now this has got this Crave Golem, you know, Candlemas Monk's business, the combo to take extra turns. But you don't have to play with that. You can swap out the Crave Golems for Root Spiders. You can swap the Candlemas Monks out for if you swap out the Candlemas Monks combo, you do take out Raise Dead, you take out Rescue. And you can bring in more removal. You can bring in the second Crater Eyes, the second Guards. Do whatever you want. You can bring in Sisters of Silence even. So yes, Archimago's pretty versatile. Very, very good in the meta. Archimago usually has trouble against Fire, Air, aggro. Even this deck, becoming more mid-range, still makes the Archimago sweat, you know, in the mat, usually, okay? So usually the Fire aggro is just so good. It has a lot of tools just to deal with what Archimago is doing. So yeah, Archimago, definitely, if you're going to go with control, it's going to be the best path forward for control. It has a lot of healing, a lot of removal, big splashy effects that finish out the game. So moving on to the last deck, and this is the big surprise. At least it was a surprise for me when I lost to it in the league, in the semifinals of the recent league. Air Midrange with Druid, not Sorcerer. And the reason being, because the Druid puts out a free minion every time it plays a site. So with that free minion, Tawny, that gets to fly around, yes, it can't block. It can't block, but it can attack. And if you have trinkets, like if you have 2 trinkets in the game, especially early on, and every single time Tawny's attacking, it's for 3, removing an opponent's minion or just chipping in damage the whole game. And then who cares if it dies? Like you put a couple trinkets on it, you attack for 3 against a 3 power minion, you kill theirs, yours dies too, but then you just play a site and bring Tawny back that same turn. It's just so powerful. It's something that was kind of underrated, I think. Like, it's something I kind of missed, the synergy with trinket, because just having, I guess it's the power of having a free minion every turn. That free one, even though it's 1 power, even though it can't block. Try it out. You'll see what I mean. If you played against it, you know what I mean. It's just really good. The other really interesting thing about Druid is you kind of have that safety net, almost like an extra death's door with Bruin, because whenever you flip a Druid, you get to put out Bruin. So Bruin soaks up damage for your avatar as long as it's nearby. So Bruin's really cool. It's kind of like I said, it kind of gives you a safety net, an extra death's door. Now, the other really cool thing about Bruin in Earth Air is at any point in time, you have Whirling Blades in your hand or you have Grapple Shot in your hand, you can flip your avatar for a free 4 power minion and then pump it up with trinkets and then whirl through your opponent's minions and their face to deal a ton of damage, removing your opponent's minions. It's just so powerful, and your opponent doesn't know when it's going to happen. They have to be prepared for it. At any given time, they have to be prepared for you to flip your avatar to get a free minion and then Grapple Shot it in or Whirling Blades it forward. That combined with, Tawny just chipping in, constantly chipping in every turn, that alone is already very powerful. But then you get to back it up with all of these huge, these huge Earth minions like Pudge Butcher, Phalanx. You have Bodyguard. You also have Vampire, which works really well with the trinket, pumping it up, plus Whirling Blades, Grapple Shot. Your opponent just always has to be on edge, ready for these big plays. They have to constantly remove your minions from the board if you're playing this deck. If you're playing against it, that's what you got to do. You have to make sure your opponent's board stays clear any way you can. You have to, or you just threaten them. Like if you can threaten them with aggro and get under them, get their life total low so that they can't put on a good offensive strategy against you, then that's fine. But usually, really these games against Arthurian Legends comes down to like making sure that they don't have the power to completely just obliterate you with some combo with Whirling Blades or with Grapple Shot. You can also play with Gigantism in this deck. I think Gigantism with Tawny is really good. I actually forgot to add it here. I'll go ahead and throw it in here. Gigantism is just really powerful, especially with Grapple Shot. I think out of all of these cards, like probably Divine Healing is just unnecessary since we have Dapple Vampire, and we want to just constantly be putting out threats that our opponent has to deal with, or else, So I think, yeah, Gigantism definitely goes in this deck. So yes, I did lose to a version of this deck in the semifinals of last league. It was very powerful. That was when I was playing a more aggro, lower to the ground version of Fire Air. Now, something interesting here is Shield Maidens. Before Arthurian Legends came out, released, Shield Maidens was kind of like it was like a back and forth minion. Like sometimes you would play her, sometimes you don't play her in Earth Air Midrange. It depended on the meta quite a bit. Lightning Bolt killed Shield Maidens pretty easily, so it wasn't always great. Right now, Shield Maidens is really good because Archimago is always playing with Poison Nova, Magic Missiles, maybe Fire Bolts. Shield Maidens is really powerful. It makes a lot of spells that Archimago is trying to use, Arcane Barrage, just dead. You can also, I've seen people like Kyle, Scourge Kyle, also playing with cards like Dwarven Digging Team to counter things like Earthquake or Berry effects. You can also play with Kingdom of Agartha, because Kingdom of Agartha allows you to play any of your minions underground to save them from being board wiped against an Archimago matchup. So this deck is naturally weak against Archimago, and this is what I mean when I say balance. So you have the aggro, which again, this is more mid-rangey. The more aggro version is probably the strongest version against Archimago, but a little bit weak against mid-range. And then you have the control, right? Archimago control, which beats the Earth Air mid-range a lot of the time. Now, like I said, Earth Air mid-range is adding things like Shield Maidens or the Dwarven Digging Team, but that makes the mid-range matchup against aggro, which should be an easy match, a little bit more risky. So that's what I say. Right now, I think it's a really well-balanced meta. I think these are the decks that you should be playing. You should be playing Fire Aggro, or you should be playing some version of Earth Air with something else splashed, maybe. So if you want to go control, Archimago, Earth Air Fire, or try Earth Fire with this type of deck. And then if you're going to be doing just mid-range, just classic mid-range, Druid is where it's at. Like I said, you can do Fire Air Aggro with Druid too. It's just not going to be as consistent as the Sorcerer. But to be completely honest and fair, I have not really tested. I've only played against Fire Air Druid, and it's only been a few times. That's just from my experience. Sorcerer kind of beats the Druid when it's aggro versus aggro. So yeah, those are the decks that I think are the best right now in the meta, or at least the decks that you should be building your deck to beat. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. I will be coming out with a video of my most recent match in the Tournament of Champions. This is a match that I lost. I can't really talk about my opponent because the tournament's still going on. I was playing this deck. It was an unfortunate series of events in that match, but I want to use it as a case study to show you like the mistakes I made in the match that could have made up for my poor draws, to just try and help you guys avoid making the same types of mistakes. So thank you so much for watching. Like I said, drop me a like or a comment down below, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.